Thanks for coming on Perform Podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
So where are you coming to us from?
Plano, Dallas, Texas. And so having a good time here. Normally I smoke a cigar from here, or 1 week ago we had 350 people here in the garden here,
Wow.
having a homecoming party for GASP and Better Bodies people from all around the world.
Give us some backstory about how you actually got started.
We started producing Better Bodies on our own back in 1994.
Wow.
Before that, we were selling Better Bodies in the Nordics. So we were, well aware with the brand and the old school feeling in the 80s and the early 90s. And Better Bodies was going really good at the time. So we took that to the next level in the Nordics, where we brought it into the sporting goods industry in the Nordics. The Nordics is, fairly small. So, only 25 million people if you put the Nordic countries together a little bit. And so very quickly, from 94 until 2000, we were quickly into the sporting goods stores, and we had, big ambitions with them, and they took us in because we were different versus Nike at the time. And, so it became a little bit of a commercial journey pretty quick. But in the beginning, 94, 95, 96, we were doing stuff that that people consider us do today with GASP.
With all the information that you know now, what would you have done differently when you first started?
Yeah, like with one brand that is commercial and one brand that is, more of an emotional journey. I would say that, I would stick to the emotional journey all the time, and I wouldn't do the commercial journeys the same way,
What's it like balancing two brands, GASP and Better Bodies? Give us some insight on that.
Yeah, in the beginning, we were trying to kind of like, okay, let's do the commercial journey with Better Bodies, and let's do the emotional with the GASP. And so we were running them side to side for many years, but side to side was in reality was more like opposite directions, So there was opposite forces going in opposite directions. So it becomes a lot of, fight between the good and the evil, I would say. So because of that, I just feel like, if I could go back in time, I would, make sure that I didn't have that issue. I would have more of the right people going in the right direction right away, and not trying to do two opposite versions of something that should be in the same direction.
What challenges are you facing right now in the clothing space?
I don't know if there's anything special with the clothing industry. I don't think so. There's a lot of moving part, and it's a little bit more like you're working a little bit more with organic stuff. Everything is handmade. We say factories, but in reality, the factories are very, very, very manual. And so I would say that's one part. But with any business, I think it's very easy that we, put the label on ourselves or on what we're doing. That, let's say in my case, could be like I'm selling T-shirts, and then I'm T-shirt salesman. So in our case, our why is to bring people together from all around the world, create a stronger why, create social belonging. And that is our why. And the product is just a way for us to deliver that message. And it's not the product itself, So many times we want to do a great product, but when we do that, it's easy that we identify too much with the product instead of obviously make the best product possible, but deliver it with a philosophy and a purpose that is way above the product,
Are you changing directions at all? Is GASP still going to be a hardcore brand, or are you taking it into another lane?
Yeah, not necessarily into different type of directions, but the better we are on explaining that this is actually more of a philosophy and a mindset, no compromises, no excuses, and being relentless, the better we get on explaining that, the easier it is to involve other people that is outside the traditional bodybuilding area per se, or if it's whoever, triathletes or whatever it is. I think I want to create a little bit of a home for people who want to change their lives, regardless if they are like a home wife trying to eat better, or if you want to be a world champion in motocross or triathlete or bodybuilding or whatever it is.
What does the next 6 to 12 months look like for GASP? Give us some insight. Let us know.
For me, it's a huge focus on bringing we have friends in 110 countries, but that also requires that I have my team and people around me and the community, athletes, ambassadors, to work in the same reality as me.
For people out there who aren't familiar with GASP and Better Bodies, what's the difference between the two brands?
It used to be a commercial journey for Better Bodies and an emotional journey for GASP. Now we are trying to, I'm trying to bring people, the things back to where it should be, because Better Bodies was an emotional journey when it was started by Brian Moss. So I really want to create that type of feeling again in Better Bodies. And since we grew Better Bodies pretty big in the Nordics and around the world, it's a big job now to change and create a little bit of the same direction as we have with GASP. So GASP is a little bit more like the hardcore dungeon type of Branch Warren, Johnny Jackson type of Metroflex, Arlington type of feeling. And Better Bodies is more like the golden era of bodybuilding in the 90s. And maybe young people that likes to strike a pose and like to have fun. And not that GASP doesn't want to have fun, but it's a little bit of a lighter feeling to it, and a little bit like the core of what we're doing from the beginning, since we started with Better Bodies.
For entrepreneurs out there right now, what advice can you give them?
I think sticking to the dreams and dream big, and dream really big, much bigger than what the surrounded would like you to dream. And then I think that when you are pursuing your dream, try to think about getting food on the table every day, and then you go up and visit the dream every day. When you do this, that you absorb, that you don't absorb the surrounding, you observe it more.
You have a lot of wisdom when it comes to business. Like, where does all of your business wisdom come from?
I think I was a little bit like I was alluding to earlier here, that I was, trusting my gut instinct. I was, trying to read the environment more than reading a book, and trying to, every day learning from my surrounding, regardless if it's good or bad or whatever it is. And I'm trying to learn from the surrounding and what's happening, so I can put things in context. If we are absorbing the surrounding, then it's very hard to be, not get emotional about things when they go wrong or right. And we get, just like any athlete gets, that is very, very successful. One thing they all have in common is that they are pretty calm when they're winning, and they're pretty calm when they are losing. And especially when they are losing, that's where the pressure is on. A thing that I feel is good learning lessons to have. To of course you want to take care of your child, but you also need to make sure that you are not getting emotionally swayed by the surrounding or lack of money or challenges and whatever it might be that gets thrown at us when we are entrepreneurial.
What's the formula that you use to get through hard times?
Of course, I try to always talk, so when people are asking me stuff, a little bit like you are asking me today, I always take these opportunities to preach for myself as well as anybody who cares to listen. I think that creates a little bit of a strong foundation that regardless what happens in my surrounding, I'm usually the one who are the calmest. I am the calmest one, and I have more creative solutions than my surrounding, you know, which is needed if we want to lead something and we want to lead ourselves, you know.
One of the things that I really appreciate about GASP, especially, is your community. I mean, you've got an amazing community. How did you build the community? Give us some insight.
I think it's always to have the philosophy first. A lot of people they mix philosophy slash strategy with structure, and when in reality you need to enforce your philosophy and uh, and your strategy, and then the surrounding usually interprets buildings structure as a way to something.
Have you ever had something that happened that went down where you were like really upset, but actually in the end it turned out to be a blessing?
Yeah, so back in 2015, 16, 17, that was a little bit the end of the analog era in the fitness industry, where with magazines disappeared and distribution disappeared, and came like a shift when it became like social media. That period was very hard for us because we were about to succeed really good in the B2B world, in the distribution world, and so it created a little bit of that I have to shift the focus very quickly and become digital and do an e-commerce journey uh, at the same time as I was stuck with both feet in the analog world. So it created like a sleepless nights and months where I didn't know what to do because I didn't have the tools to do the e-commerce journey, and I just had to decide to climb down from my big horse, and I had to be the horse. I had to, handshake by handshake, I took on the community building, and in the beginning it was a little bit like dancing by yourself on a huge dance floor. Nobody else was up there, and then one person comes in, and then another one, and another one, another one, and just keep on having that faith in taking it handshake by handshake at the same time as this was social media time, and that period became my biggest asset. All those sleepless nights, and when you didn't have nothing and nothing was working, your old buttons in the company that you were pushing, it didn't work anymore. You have to rethink your whole life, your existence. And I told my wife, if this looks like shit, maybe we need to move back home to Sweden again so I can sit on my high horse. I didn't say that, but that I could do that if I moved back to Sweden. But my wife said, like, no, you go and figure it out. We don't move. And that was the only thing I needed to hear, that we were in this together. This experience has been my biggest asset, because I'm so deadly afraid of being in that place again. So I will never ever abandon my philosophy and my strategy. It doesn't matter how much money I make or whatever happens. I will never abandon it, because experiences and relationships is everything.
After all these years, do you still have that hunger? Do you still have that drive that you had back in the day?
I feel like doubling down on the philosophy and the strategy makes it easier and easier. When you're growing, you are exposing weaknesses in your in the things you need to work on to take it to the next level. So, for many years we had an office in Sweden and an office in the US. In the beginning, the office in the US was like an outpost with me in it. Now it's a main post, but too many functions is still in maybe in Sweden that should be in the US. So that makes us be less efficient than we should be. But that's the stuff that we keep on working on. And for anybody that is listening to any of these business stories, I would say that it doesn't matter how small or big you are, you have the same issues. We all have the same issues, essentially. It's
Mm.
just different. It's just different scale on it.
What would you say the hardest issue is that you face right now?
For me, it's a little bit like making sure that the business side is catching up with the emotional side. The emotional success is huge, and but the business side need to catch up. Need to be much more in tune with the emotional side, and I think that's a little bit of a challenge to bring those sides together, because the business side is usually a lot of blue people, like blue personality, that is a little bit more square,
Mm.
and forging, making that side stick better and value the emotional side. That's a little bit the hard part.
When you first started GASP, obviously, many years ago, how long did it take roughly before you started to see that breakthrough, where things just started to click?
Yeah, I mean, everything happens on different levels, I would say. So I think in the Nordics it went pretty quick in the Nordics, to feel a little bit successful with it.
Mm.
So that's, let's say that 2002, and then 2008 I was in the US for the first time with GASP as a
Mm.
project, and I met Branch 2008 at Arnold Classic,
Mm.
and where I felt like Branch is the perfect you know, traveling partner to myself and what I was doing with GAS. We have the same mindset, the mentality around training and the life philosophy. And then from 2008, you know, we had a really good run in the B2B world until 2015.
Mm.
But at the same time, we came from Europe. We had a lot of my network and contacts were spread out, and I
Mm.
never got like a really good focus on the US. Even if I then a little bit later on, 2012, I moved to the US to create a little bit more like 2 feet on the ground in the US.
Mm.
But that was still in the during the business to business part and selling to bodybuilder.com and similar companies, resellers. So it was very hard to get that to actually convert.
When you signed Branch Warren, I mean, he was at the peak of his career. He was a monster. What was it like working with Branch? And honestly, what was it like working out with Branch?
Working out with Branch was, yeah, it was like a tornado for real.
Mm.
And I grew up a little bit like that, like they called me the wolf when I was like a young kid, because I was pushing really hard when other people were, dying around me. So I was always the last man standing. But so I felt like, Branch was like that, and then just 10 times more, That is a little bit like, the standard that I see. And this challenged me in my world, because I wanted to be like a guy like Branch when I was growing up, but I realized when I was 27 that that's not going to happen. I'm a little bit too late to the party. I didn't grow up at Metroflex Arlington next to Ronnie Coleman and stuff like that. I
Mm.
didn't have the right exposure early enough, but my goals in my head was so big that I want to run with the big boys. I want to be on the Olympia stage, but
Mm.
instead of you know get tunnel vision on that goal, I just opened up my whole windscreen and made it happen without being on the stage, because I could, I had a lot of champions being on that Olympia stage without me personally being there, but I felt like I was.
Did you have anything that you wanted to leave us with before we wrap up today?
Not really. I felt like I got a lot of tidbits of my heart here, which give me a great satisfaction to talk about, because it gets me fired up. and it keeps me on my A game. So I hope the audience listening got a little bit of that, and I would say that every message I get, wherever it is, I'll take the time to try to take care of anybody, regardless of who they are and where they come from. Uh, but it's surprisingly little people who actually step through the door, come into my office at destination, or send me a direct message. And those who do it, many get surprised that they get invited to my house for, like homecoming party and stuff like that. So my message is a little bit that I want people to feel empowered to live life to the fullest and not be afraid of going through doors. I was an introvert growing up, and I had to force myself to do stuff like we're doing right now. And it was not easy, and it's still not easy, but I'm trying to do it.
Mike, thanks so much for coming on Perform Podcast. You were an amazing guest, very insightful. Thanks for sharing your wisdom. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the friendship over all these years, and looking forward to do more stuff together.